plate back and forth until it slides up. Now there's no preloaded springs in there that's going to fly out. So all you got to do is pull the side plate off, set your side plate off to the side, and you're ready to get into your reel. First thing you want to do is remove the 2 yoke springs. Remove your anti-reverse sleeve. A good way to get this gear off, it's compressed up against a drag washer, so sometimes it'll be suctioned on there. What I like to do is just kind of spin it backwards. Then you just want to grab it and just kind of rock it back and forth until it's ready to come up. And just lift straight up like that.
Cool.
Then what you want to do is remove your pinion gear. Just pull straight up and out. Now we're ready to service the reel. What you're going to want to do is remove this first drag washer. I like to use just a pair of pliers or a pair of just needle nose or tweezers, anything you can to get underneath that drag washer. You're going to want to pull it straight up. And once you've done that, what you're going to want to do is just get a little bit of our grease. It's Shimano grease, it's Teflon grease. You just want just a light film on your finger. You don't want a lot. What I like to do is just kind of rub it in between my fingers so I just get a nice thin coating. And what you're going to want to do is just kind of coat the washer. Just a nice film. The more grease you put on the drag washer, the less drag pressure you're going to get. So you just want just a nice fingerprint on the drag washer. You just put that right back on to your drive shaft. Now what we're going to want to do is put the pinion gear back into the reel and your yoke. All they do is they just pull right apart. You're just going to want to clean them up a little bit before you put them back in. So just kind of Q-tip around, getting kind of grease or dirt any out of there. Just kind of get it as clean as possible. And once you clean that, you're going to take your pinion gear. Just take a standard toothbrush. You just want to brush out the teeth of the gear. Get any kind of dirt out of there, any kind of old grease, and just get all the grease out of there all the way around the gear. But once you got that clean now, we're going to go ahead and clean the inside of the pinion gear. You just want to take a Q-tip and just clean the inside of the pinion gear. Then tear off some cotton. What you're going to want to do is just go through the pinion gear, just tear off most of the cotton on a Q-tip, just leave a little bit on there, just put a little bit of rubbing alcohol in there. You just want to go through the middle of the pinion gear and get any kind of grease, any kind of oil, any kind of dirt out of there. Because what that will cause is it'll cause friction in between or inside the pinion gear from the spool shaft because the tolerance is so tight. There's no room for any kind of lubrication, no dirt, nothing. The reason you want to keep the pinion gear so clean is because the tolerance in the pinion gear and the spool shaft is so tight that there's really no room for any error. Any kind of lubrication, any kind of dirt, it's gonna bind up and it's gonna cause friction and you're not gonna get as much free spool as you should. Now once you have the pinion gear cleaned up, what you wanna do is install your yoke back onto your pinion gear. If you look at the yoke, there's gonna be a couple little ramps on each side of the yoke. You're gonna want those ramps pointing down because they sit on these little ramps right here on your cam. There's one on each side, one here and one here. So they have to sit down on those. So once you have your pinion gear back in your yoke, you just want to take your pinion gear and your yoke, and it's just going to slide right back down onto those posts and right back into that bearing. Just like that. And next you're ready to clean up your main gear and your drag. Now you're going to take this main gear, I'm just going to pull this top washer off. And what you're going to want to do is get a pair of tweezers or a little pair of needle nose or a flathead screwdriver. And what you want to do is just get underneath that drag washer and just pull it up out of the drive gear. And what you want to do is just set that aside. Now we're going to go ahead and clean your main gear. What I like to do is just wipe down, get any kind of grease off there. You can use towel, you can use Q-tips. If you use Q-tips, you will use a lot, so I like to use the towel at first, and then I'll clean it up afterwards. with the Q-tip just to get kind of in the cracks, get anything that I missed.
Where does all that grease come from?
It actually will come from the drag washer. When we put the drag grease on the drag washer, it'll just mix with the drag washer, and it'll just, from the pressure of the drag, it'll kind of spread the grease off it, and it'll kind of just collect in the corners. So just good to clean up any of the old stuff. You're going to be putting stuff back in there. You just want to clean up the old grease and get it out of there. Now once we have all that cleaned up, what we're going to want to do is just take your Crest toothbrush again, okay, and you want to just go ahead and just clean out the teeth of the main gear. Get any kind of dirt, old grease out of there as much as possible. And you want to do that all the way around the gear. Make sure there's nothing stuck in the teeth of the gear. Once you do that, you're going to want to go ahead and just clean up any dirt that might have been brushed out of there. And now you're ready to re-lubricate the gear. What we use is our Teflon grease, our Shimano Teflon grease. Just want to get a little bit of grease on your finger. And what you want to do is probably fill about half of the gear up with grease just on the teeth of the gear. So I'll spread it on there like that, and then I'll just push it into the teeth of the gear. And you want to do that about half to 3/4 of the gear.
All the way around though?
Not all the way around the gear,
really?
just about. You can do it all the way around, but once you put the gears back into the reel and turn the handle, it's going to disperse the grease throughout the gear. So now that you have that greased, you can go ahead and install your main gear back into the reel. So you're ready to slide the main gear down onto the shaft. What I like to do is just slide it down until it hits the pinion gear. And then what you're going to want to do is just pull the pinion gear back just slightly. That way it's not sitting underneath the drive gear. Match up the teeth, and then it should snap right down.
So the key there is to pull that pinion gear back just a hair.
Yeah, because it'll kind of just tilt underneath the main gear, and it'll bind up when you're trying to put it back down. So now that we have the gear back in, we're going to go ahead and clean up the drag washer. What I like to do is when cleaning the drag washer, is try to keep it flat on a piece of table because it will break. So kind of just keep it flat, and then just kind of rub it back and forth on a paper towel. And you're going to want to do that on both sides. And now that your drag washer is cleaned, now you want to re-lubricate it. You can take some more of the Shimano grease, just kind of rub it in my fingers, get a nice thin film, and then you want to coat the outside of the whole drag washer. You don't want to be too much, just a nice fingerprint of grease. And now that you've greased your drag washer, you're ready to put it back into the reel. All you gotta do, just slide it right back into the gear, and it just sits in there. Okay. Now you're ready to put your top key washer on. So you just take the top key washer, it's metal, go ahead and give it a good wipe down, get all the old grease out of there. And now there's no need to re-lubricate this washer. This washer stays dry. And it's just slots. It falls right back down into the reel. Okay. Now once you've done that, you're ready to put your yoke springs back on. Those 2 little springs that we took off in the beginning. All they do is they just slide directly on that post. Make it a little easier to see. They just sit right on that post. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to clean your anti-reverse sleeve up. Now this sleeve you do not want to lubricate. You want to keep it completely dry. No oil, no grease, nothing. Once you have that cleaned up, it goes right down to your shaft. There's a couple little wings on it that just slot right into that top gear, and it'll just fall right into place. And once you've done that,